Newquay in Cornwall is one of the foremost holiday destinations during the summer months. Well, really down in the West Country. It's possibly one of the most famous, if not the most famous place for surfing. There's beautiful bays in there. You have Fistral Beach, the main surfing beach, but I was down there to go on a fishing boat, and it wasn't just any fishing boat. It was a fishing boat with a bit of history. It was called the Peganina, and as you can see from the white caps of the charter boats anchored way offshore from Newquay, it was not great weather for me anyway. It was a howling east to southeasterly. But here is the harbour at Newquay with the water in it. It's filled up. I've actually gone down there to do a little bit of filming while I'm waiting for the skipper, which is Anthony Hills, who is actually running a boat called the Peganina. Now, some of you from the dim and distant years might remember the name Peganina. It was a Boscastle boat that specialised in shark fishing, but didn't specialise. It actually caught some very big sharks and did a lot of reef fishing around the North Cornwall coast there. And I had a chance to go out the Peganina, which has been relocated by Anthony down at Newquay, chartering out of there. It's a nice big boat. I think it's been totally refurbed, and I had the chance to get out there. Just a one-day deal it was. That's all it was. I'd been doing some shore fishing films up off the Somerset coastline, and I made the drive down there. And it was nice to see the Peganina, after all the servicing that Anthony's done to it, was still churning along nicely. Nice big comfortable boat to ride in. A good fishing boat with plenty of space, and more important, it was the area. Now just look at the rocky coastline there. You've got deep water quite close to shore, and where the headlands come down and break into the water, as you can see it there, that's ideal, for me anyway, it's ideal shark fishing ground. In fact, I've never even fished from Newquay before. So with the boat well underway, we were heading out down the coast, heading, I guess, southwesterly direction, following it round. All the instrumentation's there on the boat. Anthony's got all the fish finding gear, echo sounders, got it all there, and knows the marks. And we were going to try and anchor because it was so rough we couldn't really do much drifting, and it was absolutely howling there. So what we're going to try and do is a bit of anchoring up. He was going to show us about some pollock fishing on a bit of reef mark he's got, not a million miles away from Newquay itself. But you know, let's face it guys, when it's an absolutely howling wind like that, you want a bit of comfort. We could have gone way offshore to fish some of the reef marks, and we actually did intend going shark fishing, and I took a load of chum or rubby-dubby down there with me in the car, stinking my car out. Don't forget, I've been shore fishing for 2 days before this, so it had most definitely thawed out in my car. And just look at that reef sticking up. That's what I call a saddleback reef. The gap in the middle has been eroded, and the piece on the end is the bit you want to look. There's a reef underwater on another patch. It was so reminiscent of big porbeagle shark country, I cannot tell you. I was really excited. So while Andy was a little disappointed with the strong winds that he couldn't get out and show me the blue shark fishing, which is, well, let's face it, it's just blue shark fishing. It's not rocket science. You just go out and you catch them. But here is a place, guys, that could be the new porbeagle shore inshore fishing ground in British Isles. I have no idea. It's not really a huge distance from where I normally fish, so of course I didn't waste all that rubby-dubby and chum. It went out there for a possible shark, and out went the shark balloons. You can actually see the slick going away. And while we were at anchor, get Anthony to try and tell us a little bit about his insight into taking people fishing for pollock.
Right, so my name is Anthony Hills, the skipper of the Peganina. She's a Locking 33 with a Ford 6-cylinder Dover engine in her, turbo diesel. Sort of cruising speed 8 to 10 knots, and working out of Newquay Harbour. She's been here for about 4 years now, come down from Boscastle. Primarily doing 4 to 8 hour trips. Primarily sort of drifting reefs and at wrecks for pollock, or we anchor up, sort of your conger, your bullace, your topes, your smooth hounds. Most of our trips are 4 hours, but we do 8 hours, and we do mackerel trips of 2 hours. Bit of background for me, I grew up in a tackle shop back in Kent, where I'm from. Was in tackle shops at the age of 6 and covered most aspects of angling through freshwater, all the way through the boat and fly fishing, beach casting, so I know a little bit. Right, so one of our main sort of fishings is for pollock. So to achieve this, we're using, this is an ugly stick, £6, it's a long rod, a very tippy rod. You'll notice this comes into, I'll tell you why in a minute. Now this is geared up with a small Mitchell with a star drag, and we're using £30 whiplash. Now this is important why the rod's tippy, because there's no give or stretch in this line. So a nice tippy rod with a fish crash dives gives you a chance you won't lose it. One thing when using braid is you've got to remember to set the drag. Now you don't want it too loose, just a nice gentle pull. To do this with a star drag, clockwise to tighten it, anti-clockwise, just loosen it off. And really important, especially when fishing with braid, especially with pollock, because when they hit it hard and crash dive down. Right, a different sort of style of multiplier, and this is a pen lever drag. To adjust the clutch on this one, instead of the star drive, you push the lever forward. So it's much easier. So if you've got a fish running, you want to slow it down, you just push the drag forward. And if you want to lock the clutch up, push the little button and wind it right forward. It's a bit more expensive, but tends to be it's a nicer reel to use. You find the clutch is a lot easier to use, a lot easier to manage, and not as snatchy as you'll find a star drag. If you dream it up, it can tend to bite a little bit. And this is just coupled. This is slightly heavier braid. This is again Berkeley, but this is firepower. It's a lot tougher with abrasion and stuff. And again, this rod now, this is an ugly stick. This is a £15 class. Still quite light, but a lot more grunt down the bottom of it. And you see the tip there still. Nice soft tip there. It's nice of giving it, but a bit of a tougher rod. Right, so terminal tackle for fishing for pollock. You need some sort of boom. This is a French boom. There's different variations on this. We've got another style here where the line actually goes through. But we go back to the French boom. You want to tie your main line onto here, then a little bit of a snood there, just for your lead as a dropper. This one's about 10 inches, but you can go, some booms go 14, 15, some right down to 6. And all you want now is, this is Amnesia. A very good line, £25. It's very good, doesn't twist, stops tangles, memory free. About 6 foot. So to stretch it out, you can go longer depending how many people's on the boat. About 6 foot, 6 to 8 foot. It's a nice manageable size, manageable length. And then you've got your different sort of gills. Right, there's loads of different lures on the market. This just happens to be ones we got on the boat. These sort of things are light lead heads. This is about 4 inches in length with little paddle tails. Very realistic fishing, the way they swim. Also, the line's tied on the top here, and the hook sits on top. So if you bounce in on a wreck, it tends not to get stuck in. So you're getting hooked. So that's one version there. Another one again, slightly different colours. We find around here sort of reds and yellows work well. Again, another sort of variation. This one's got a bubble effect again, but with a paddle tail. Paddle tail seems to work well, swims well in the water. Another one here, pearlescent white, with a little blue. Again, a lead head, same setup, eye on top, with the hook, stop getting snagged. As an alternative to your lures, a cheaper option is these jelly worms. Now, they're nice and cheap. You don't mind about losing a few of them. The colours that I've found best, that work best around here, crazy as it seems, is this sparkly little blue number, your solid blacks, your oranges. But anything on the day can work well. It depends if how hard they're feeding and if they're timid. Your purples, they can work well. And I'm going to show you now how to thread one of these on a hook. Right, now these are an Aberdeen hook. They're a sort of Chinese copy of a hook, but they're nice and cheap and plentiful. Now the reasons I like using these hooks, there's a nice long shank on them. They're soft, so if you get stuck in the reef, they bend. So you don't lose all your gear necessarily, and you can bend them back in and put an edge on them. So this is how I like to tie my hooks on. Again with £25 Amnesia, through the eye of the hook. Lay a loop on the line, like that. 3 to 4, 5 turns through. Just pull it up tight. Very important to wet the line so you don't burn it. Just gently pull it up. Very nice, neat knot now. Cut the tag off. And now this is going to act like a barb. So you pick up wherever lure you fancy. Very similar to threading a lugworm on. Start at one end, just like that. And work through. Some of them have this flat section there just after that. Just like that. And the line is acting as a sort of stop. Make sure the hook's nice and exposed and just fish that. Right, so the technique we use for pollock is a nice controlled slow drop down to prevent the trace tangling up. And when you hit the bottom, initially first few winds nice and quick just to get you off, especially if you're using lead heads, because you'll find they sink down after the lead and tend to get a hitch in. And then slow down, have the rod tip pointing at the water, a nice slow steady wind. Sort of 25-30 turns, not all the way to the top, and back down to the bottom, and repeat. Every sort of 5 or 6 times up, it might be worth it just to bring it up, make sure your flying collar rig is all sitting straight and not tangled up, because you can tangle up around the boom. And then repeat it again, back down to the bottom, nice and slowly. First, when it bumps, first initial couple of winds, nice and fast, and then nice slow retrieve. Sometimes the pollock are a bit shy to feed, vary the speed, slow right down, speed it up, sort of find out what works for you. And when you find out how you're catching them, tell everyone else around the boat. Hopefully have a few themselves. Right, so finally, the choice of leads. Now you've got 3 different styles here. Your bow pedo, it's a normal sort of 8-ounce lead, and a ball lead. 3 different styles. I tend to use 8 ounces. You don't want to go too light, because you want to keep the line as pretty much as vertical as you can, and you want to feel when you've hit the bottom. But if you go too heavy on the other end, it sort of ruins the fight of the fish, because you're just playing the lead. So lead choice is important, and sort of work out what's sort of best for you, and sort of vary your fishing, and sort of state a tide if there's a lot of tide, if there's not running. So it's all trial and error. Anyway, I hope it's been useful. I hope you come and visit us. Thank you very much. Right, first for this fish of the day here, just anchored up. Not very big, but quite lively. So, little codling.
Oh, yeah, it's a nice fish, yeah. Well, thankfully the anchor was still holding, because don't forget, the Paganina is an old boat, a big heavy boat, and it wasn't ever going to drag at anchor. And here we go, up comes our customer on a panel rig which I was using from shore, pulley panel, dogfish. Get one of those T-bars, guys, it's so easy to unhook fish. Watch this, plop, back in the water. And there are the chum bags that they've got full of mashed up fish, and they've got the secret raptor oil in the ingredient that drives sharks, well, out of their tiny brains, because one assumes they've got tiny brains. Probably not as tiny as mine though. Meanwhile, Anthony was amongst the pollock again, and he's already told you how to catch them, and here he is showing you just how it works under, well, not great conditions really. It was absolutely howling. Even so, we struggled away, and it shows you out off Newquay on the reef, got a good chance of catching some mixed fish in there, on red gills, on sidewinder lures, on those jelly worms. There's a multitude of different lures you can use down there, and while the huge boat was rocking and rolling around, I've still got those shark lines out. I was still hopeful there might be a chance of a poor wiggle shark, a mako, or who knows, even a thresher shark. And don't dispel the thoughts of a thresher, because there has been one caught some years ago, a big one down there that Anthony was telling me about. I just worked away, and I was on the pollock lures, and I like light tackle pollock fishing, so if you ever get down that way, don't forget, if you're headed to West Country, if you're heading down to Newquay, make sure you take your light tackle with you, some light to sort of medium range leads, I'm going to say 2 to 4 ounces, and that way if you're using braid line, you can still fish those pollock with really light gear. The beauty of fishing down Cornwall and in the West Country is you never know what you get. And here I have some small feathers, and look what I've caught. These are launce. They're otherwise known as the greater sand eel, and they are a bait par excellence. That's my French coming out there. Really good for big pollock and a lot of other species as well. Of course, being an anchor, I'm not just going to pollock fish. I'm going to send down a nice big chunk of mackerel bait on my old trusty old Coniflex rod. It's had common skate on it, blue sharks on it, marlin on it. It's only like a 20-pound blank, but it's had some great fish on it. And obviously with a chum slick going straight back towards those headlands, those rocks that we'd normally be porbeagle fishing for further up the coast, I was very, very hopeful that we might get something toothy come along there. But even while I was waiting, I thought I'm going to send some big baits down. Anthony did the same, and I'm sure that the chum we're using not just attracts sharks. Let's face it, the dogfish is a member of the shark family, and if there's any fishy smell or scent in the water, I can assure you the dogfish will home in on it. And I will say one thing about Newquay, there's some pretty good sized dogfish down there as well. With pollock fishing, anytime you can get a lure in the water, there's always the chance of catching them. Now they can be 3 pounds up to, I guess a good reef pollock would be 12, 14 pounds. And there were the odd cod as you've seen coming up as well, and that seems to be on the increase down that way. But just look at this, guys. That's a massive conger hook. How on earth did that pollock take that hook? The hook is just unbelievably. I used that for 400-pound porbeagle shark, so goodness knows how he got that hook in his mouth. Am I arguing? Absolutely not. I'll catch anything that comes along. Oh dear. Unfortunately, dogfish again. And again, and again, and again. There were so many dogfish down there, I figured I was going to be a fully paid up member of the Kennel Club. While Anthony is going to keep the Peganina off Newquay during the summer months, he's going to move it back round the coast to the Kent area to fish off Dungeness for cod during the winter. Now here's an unusual fish. On a fish strip bait put down for pollock, look at this one. It's a wrasse. Can you believe that? They do come out, is a bit of a rarity. A nice male cuckoo wrasse with fantastic colours in it, and just look at those teeth. They look just like, wow, they just look like fish teeth to me. But they can actually tear off slipper limpets and crunch up crabs, and it's nice to see those fish down there. Beautiful colours, a great fish to catch. So if you get the chance and you're ever in the Cornish area, go and visit Newquay in the summer months when Anthony has the Peganina down there. Go out on a charter, enjoy the weather, and do you know what? Don't just take the light tackle. Make sure you throw a shark line in as well. I have a really good gut feeling this could be the place for the next big sharks.